If you're wandering around Prague this weekend, then you might be excused to think that Czechs are a patriotic bunch, even though they're typically not. There will be flags everywhere. And if you stumble into the old town square, there's going to be a huge pile of wreaths all around the statue. And that statue is a guy named Jan Hus.
Say Facetious.
I'm Sean Basie, and today I'm going to tell you about Jan Hus Day, and who Jan Hus is, and what are some of the background, what are some stories behind him. Czechs celebrate the 6th as Jan Hus Day because back in 1415, Jan Hus was burned at the stake. Now, why was he burned at the stake? He was a heretic! Burn him! This was even before they were burning witches. I may have just made that up.
But she's a witch!
But yes, this was before Calvin, before Zwingli, before Martin Luther, before all those great Protestant reformers that people read about and make new churches around. There was Jan Hus. And Jan Hus, he was a Catholic priest back in the 1400s, and he was preaching around Prague and Bohemia, and he was preaching, he was asking the simple question that why can't peasants also get the wine at communion? Okay? There was really nothing against it in Catholic, the real doctrine, the real doctrine. It was just the common practice, which is what they call it in two kinds, communion in two kinds. So serving both the bread and the wine. The Orthodox were doing it, so why weren't the Catholics? And so this question didn't really go down well within the Catholic Church. At the time, you had two popes, as you do, one in Rome, one in Avignon. The period is called the Babylonian captivity. Like the French wanted to have the power to place their own popes for their own claim of being Charlemagne's heirs to the Holy Roman Empire. But the Holy Roman Empire, which is going on at the time, they're like, no, we're the Holy Roman Empire, so we have to have the Pope. And they were placing the guy in Rome. And so the anti-pope was really trying to push his influence over into the Germanic lands. And at that time in Prague, it was kind of a Germanic land because the Germans had, the Holy Roman Empire was really pushing German language and culture through its lands, even though it was a multi-ethnic empire, because you also had, not just German peoples, but you also had Czechs, you had Moravians, you had, who are now kind of the same people, you had Slovaks, you had Hungarians, you had Croatians, Slovenes, you had all these different peoples that were all in the single Holy Roman Empire. You had Italians as well, because at that time they were pushing their influence over Rome. You had this struggle going on. It's like a religio-political struggle, and the popes that were in Avignon, we call anti-popes now. I don't think they were called anti-popes at the time, but the anti-pope then was Alexander, and he was like, okay, Jan, no, we're not asking these questions. Get out of here. And he excommunicated Jan.
We declare him excommunicate.
Jan didn't take that very well, naturally. So he started preaching more about his other issues, okay, which is why wasn't the Bible being preached in Czech, okay, in the countryside. Thanks for listening. I just want to let you guys know that I do have 2 books on Prague and Czechia. Czech Republic. But when I would Czechia, it's easier to write on there, even though I know most people hate the name. But yeah, these are very helpful books for you to travel around, get to know the country, read some history, funny history, but also just lots of interesting places to go. I've got handy QR codes on all the maps that'll link you right to the maps on Google Maps that I've set up for your phones so you can get around. I hear it's a good book. I wrote it. Same with this one. Good book. Check them out. And I also have a tour through the old town on VoiceMap. I'll link to all this down below. If you enjoy the video, please click like as you can. Now, You had the main religious language was Latin, okay, which, to be fair, like every nobleman would have spoken Latin, like, or known Latin. They would have been able to read it. Now the peasantry, different story. However, by the 1400s, like French and Italian were still kind of close to ecclesiastical Latin, especially Italian was basically the same language at the time. So it wasn't a by far stretch. Like they just wanted to keep it so that people everywhere were able to discourse in the language. But that did leave out the peasantry, didn't it? And when you're reading the Bible in the church to the peasants, the whole point of reading the Bible to the peasants was that they couldn't read it themselves. And if you're reading it in a language that they don't even know, what's the point? Like, yeah. So that was Jan Hus's argument, okay? And then his last argument was, indulgences. Like, indulgences were this kind of get out of hell free cards that you could buy in advance, and then when you're in purgatory, or when you're in the line to go to hell, you're like, oh, but I bought an indulgence. I can't go to hell. Later, dudes. I'm out of here. Yeah, so he didn't like those three things. So the Pope had called him to Constance, because they were having a council there, and they're going to hit a couple of things, 1, 2, 3, 4, bam. One of the things was to deal with what to do with the Teutonic Knights. The other thing was to resolve the whole schism, to solve the anti-pope crisis. And the last thing was to put an example of what to do with heretics who were going against the church. He was put on trial. It was kind of a show trial. They already knew the result of it. And then they condemned him, kicked him out of the church. They handed over him to civil authorities. And then the civil authorities said, okay, you know what, we're going to make an example out of him too, and we're going to show our allegiance to the church, which will show the peasantry that we really love them and respect them or whatever. And so they are the ones who put him at stake, burn him. But yeah, so that's what happened. And the irony is those three things: the indulgences, the reading of mass in the local language, and what was that other? The two kinds, the communion in two kinds. There's stuff the Catholic Church does now. So this guy was really burned at stake for nothing. Like, for raising apparently very valid issues, because the Catholic Church later said, you know what, our bad. Why do we burn you? Those are good points. Ironically, like, he did set off that, there's a group following him later. They're called Ultrakists, and they were very influential in bringing a lot of his ideas into the Catholic fold, because they kind of have brought a peace treaty between them. But I'll get to that. Okay, so when Jan Hus died, he made the statement, in 100 years there will be a guy you cannot just burn at the stake. And many people think he was referring to Martin Luther, who would come about 100 years later. And even Martin Luther would make the statement, we are all Hussites, yeah. Finally, I got an accent right. German accent. Yeah. So many people think it was Martin Luther, but really, he might have been just speaking of contemporaries, because there was a lot of followers of his were getting riled up in Bohemia. When they heard of his death, a lot of people got mad and started raiding churches, Catholic churches in Prague. And so then the mayor of Prague, of the new town, he captured some of those guys and put them in prison. And then you had that led to this riot going on at the new town square, and they're all like, hey, no, well, free those guys. And then the mayor was like, no, screw you guys. So the mob wanted to free all these people, and they went in the new town hall, and they broke in, and they threw out all of the king's men out through the window. And this was called the first defenestration of Prague. Defenestration being, it's one of my favorite words in English, because it comes directly from Latin. You have fenestra, which means window. De means out of. So it literally means, it's a construction that literally means out of the window. So they were defenestrated. They were out of the windowed, de-windowed. They landed on some spearheads, died. Within this mob, there's a famous general, this guy who was already growing in fame, this guy named Jan Zizka. And he led the people, the mob, to take over all of Prague. Now, luckily, at the same time that this was going on, you had the king, Wenceslaus. He had a heart attack and died. I guess he heard either about the defenestration, he heard about something. He was just eating too much goulash, too much knedliki, and he keeled over and bit it, which was a problem for the royalty because the next guy in line was King Sigismund over in Hungary. And so when Sigismund heard about that, the death of Wenceslas, and then he also heard about Zizka taking over his town, he decided to round up some troops and get back, like haul over to Prague from Hungary. And he's like, I got to get my city back. And now the issue here, so Zizka, he hears about the incoming army of Sigismund, so he heads down to Tabor. Tabor had become a kind of the fortress of the Hussites, and he rounds up a bunch of Hussites to go up to Prague and take on King Sigismund and all of his army. And they set up a camp up on Vitkov hill, which was next to Prague. Now it's like quite in Prague, but back then Prague was basically the old town and new town, and that was it. So they set up an encampment on this hill, in this fortress on the hill. And when King Sigismund's army came, like basically Zizka's guys were peasants and farmers, and that were trained a little bit in fighting, and so they had what they call farmers' flails, which is just like basically staves. Just improvised weapons. And so they were able to fight off King Sigismund's knights and professionally trained troops. And so this was a huge accomplishment for Zizka. And that's why on Vitkov Hill, they have a huge statue of Zizka, of Jan Zizka. If you go up there, you even see an eye patch. He was a one-eyed guy at this time. He only had one eye. That's not the only statue of Zizka, though. There's also another one over in Palats Lucerne on Wenceslas Square, and it's got an upside-down horse with Zizka sitting on top, and that's by this famous Czech surrealist sculptor David Czerny, and he's a pretty interesting sculptor. Like now he does really big architecture monuments, but before he was doing like little interesting stuff like that. He got to start painting a tank pink just after the Soviet Union fell. So that's that. But yeah, and then Zizko also got a neighborhood named off of him, Zizkov, which is where Vitkov Hill is. It's technically in Zizkov, even though it straddles Zizkov and Karlin. But what's really cool is like they have this walking trail. Nowadays, if you're there nowadays, there's a walking trail that's kind of hidden behind the streets in Zizkov. And that walking trail like hits an occasional beer garden and stuff. So check it out if you're there and you feel like a walk. It feels like you're in the nature, and it's just really neat walking area. I like it because of the beer gardens, obviously. And there's a really cool beer garden on top of Vitkov Hill as well. This Zizka guy, okay, I mentioned he had one eye. This guy was a real bad mofo, in the words of Samuel L. Jackson, the esteemed one. This guy, like, if Pilsner Kel had come up with the most interesting man in the world campaign before Dos Equis, they could have just modeled it after Jan Zizka. Like, he was a pretty incredible dude. Like, check this out. And this is all true, okay? So, Zizka once led an army of peasants and farmers to victory against armored knights using castle made of wagons. He didn't always have one eye, but when he did, he could still take the strategic advantage. He never lost a battle, even after losing his other eye. And even when he didn't have any eyes, he still won. Some say he could feel the enemy's fear in the wind. He once trained an army to fight with farm tools and tore down the king's guard with a farmer's flail. Just before he died, he wanted to keep fighting, so he demanded his men turn his skin into leather for war drums. He is Jan Zizka, the most interesting man in the world. Stay thirsty, my friends. So yeah, that could have, like, Pilsner Kel could have gone with that. Come on, guys. Where's your marketing department? Get on it. Get in touch with me if you want to use my video. Yeah, so that's that. They had Prague. Like, the Hussites became a group to be dealt with, and they were rampaging all across the Czech countryside, burning down Catholic churches. Like if you get to like Kutná Hora, either there's a church there that had been burned down, and emptied out, and I guess it's just kind of the it looks like a new church almost, and it's because it's only like 400 years old, recovering from all that damage the Hussites did. But that's what Protestants liked to do back in the day. Burn down Catholic churches. So in response, Catholics often just burn the Protestants. Whoops. That's how it goes. So you have that was like a precursor to the later wars of religion. What happened to the Hussites? They kind of fell apart. Like half of them wanted to just renegotiate with the Catholics. Those are the Olczekists. And the other half, they started their own church, the Hussite church. And Prague itself became kind of a sanctuary for religion. Like they kind of calmed down about religion. And you fast forward like 500 years, and it's Czechs are like one of the most atheist people in Europe now. In Europe now, they are like. I remember being on one tour in Kutná Hora. There was an old school seminary for young boys. Not anymore, but this lady was giving the tour, and she's like, "Oh, the evil priests would kidnap our the babies and take them to the seminary school." And I'm like, well, it's not really how it worked, but okay, fair enough. But yeah, it's just like the tour was like just vehemently anti-Catholic, which is okay. It's funny to me because I am a very cynical character, as you may have noticed. Okay, so yeah, but that's all what all the wreaths are about. That's what all the Czech flags are about. Not Jan Zizka, but Jan Hus and his Hussite legacy. And that's why you have, if you go to Old Town Square, there's the big statue in the center is Jan Hus, and you have over one of the churches there actually is a Hussite church. Give it a visit, and have a great day.